Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Radha Sama Sundara, Radha Sama Sundara. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivraja Akachacha Asto Saraswati Sriman, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya, BBT Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivraja Akachacha Asto Saraswati Sriman, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Shikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gokapinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki. Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki. Shri Navadvip Dhama Ki. Shri Gangamai Jamunamai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki. Yantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Kutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Rani Pachamani Nirshri Shri Sachere Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om N So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 47, Text 17, I believe. And to spare, 14, oh my goodness, okay, well, still hard. Okay, so you can chant or no? Oh, he's going to chant. All right, go for it. I hired a verse chanter. Okay. I didn't know in the first place, that's why I didn't do it.
Kim you have bahu sadang Hare gayasi tvam yaduna
Kim bahu sadang Hare tvam yaduna
Adhipati magrahana magrato nah puranam Vijaya sakha sakhinam giyatam tat prasanga Shapikaku charujaste kalpayantushtam ishtaha
Don't all rush at once. Word meanings. Actually, even Krishna Swarupa Prabhu said when he chanted these verses, remember? He was chanting the beginning verse of this, and he said this is a unique tune that's not found anywhere else in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll just go on, if that's okay, unless someone wants to chant. If you speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, Kim, why? Iha, here. Bahu, much. Sat angre. O.B., 6-footed one. Gayasi, are singing. Tvam, you. Yadunam, of the Yadus. Adipatim, about the master. Grihanam, who have no home. Agrata, in front of. Na, us. Purananam, old. Vijay, of Arjun. Saka, of the friend. Sakinam, for the friends. Giyatam, should be sung. Tat, of him. Prasanga, the topics. Shapita, relieved. Kucha, of whose breasts. Ruja, the pain. Te, they. Kapayanti, will provide. Ishtam, the charity you desire. Ishtaha, his beloveds. Translation. O.B., why do you sing here so much about the Lord of the Yadus in front of us homeless people? These topics are old news to us. Better you sing about that friend of Arjuna in front of his new girlfriends, the burning desire in those whose breasts he has now relieved. Those ladies will surely give you the charity you are begging. Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, with a little help from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. With the words Angrihanam Agratona, Radharani laments that even though she and the other gopis gave up their homes to love Krishna in a conjugal relationship, the Lord left them and became a prince in the great royal city of the Yadus. Besides meeting Arjuna the victor, The word Vijay also directly indicates Sri Krishna, who is always victorious in his endeavors, and besides meaning old news, the word Puranam also indicates that Sri Krishna is glorified in the ancient Vedic scriptures of that name. In this verse, we observe in Radharani's mood the seed of jealous anger, which arises from an apparent disdain for Krishna, accompanied by a sarcastic sidelong glance directed towards him. Thus, this verse fits the following description of Vijalpa from the Ujjvala Nilamani, 14.186. Vyaktayashu yaya gudha mana mudrantaralaya agha dvishi katakshotir vijalpo vidusham mata. According to learned authorities, Vijalpa is sarcastic speech that is addressed to the killer of Agha and that openly expresses jealousy while at the same time hinting at one's angry pride. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Sunivadi Paschachila Sitarane Om Aganati Mirandasya Ganangana Shalakaya Chakshuram Nivatangjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karati Vachalam Pangam Gangayate Grimya Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dhinatana Parmanam Shri Chaitanya. So I was talking with Akuti yesterday, and I told her I was thinking of discussing in this class the difference between us and Srimati Radharani. And she said, well, if you discuss the similarities, then it would be a really short class. But if you discuss the differences, then it's going to be a really long class. But I think we can do both simultaneously. Because what struck me is the fact that here Radharani, Srimati Radharani, looking from the outside, is crazy. Even the discussion of what she is saying here is madha. It's called madness. She's talking in madness to a bumblebee. If we saw someone on the street talking to a bumblebee, or even not in the street, in private, talking to a bumblebee, we would probably be concerned about their mental health. And so Srimati Radharani is mad, mad after Krishna. And we are also mad. We do many things that when the devotees see, they think these people are crazy. They belong in a mental institution. Srila Prabhupada once wrote some piece, Who's Crazy? And he came into the conclusion that everyone's crazy. We're all crazy because we're acting on the principle that we're someone that we're not. We used to, I don't know how common it is now, but it used to be the proverbial indication of insanity when someone would act like Napoleon. And they'd put their hand in, the caricature was that they'd put their hand inside their shirt and they'd start acting as if they were some great general when really they were in a nut house, and they didn't really have any clue about anything. But they were under a delusion of greatness. So here, Srimati Radharani is under an illusion that this bumblebee is a messenger from Krishna. But her illusion is born of the highest state of spiritual ecstasy, whereas our illusion is born of something else. And so one of the differences, or perhaps the key difference between ourselves and the persons in the spiritual realm, whether they're on this planet at the moment or whether they're in Goloka Vrindavan, is the impact of the Maya that they're in. Because both Srimati Radharani and us, we're also both under the effect of Maya. The illusory energy, or one of the energies of Krishna, is Yoga Maya. And Yoga Maya has multiple functions. Prabhupada gives the example of an air conditioning unit that can be by an electrician can be reprogrammed to also offer heat. And depending on what we want from it, we can adjust it, or an experienced person can adjust it and bring heat or cold as needed. So Krishna has this illusory potency, Maya, and the Yoga Maya of Krishna can be turned into Mahamaya and put us in illusion so that we become confused about who we are, and we think we're somebody else. We think we're this body, and we think that we're American, and we think that we're fat or short or ugly or whatever we think we are, intelligent, poor, rich, American, name it. There's a huge list, all the bodies that we can identify with. And then there's the Yoga Maya, which the inhabitants in Vrindavan fall under, which puts them under the illusion that they can't perceive that Krishna is God. And it puts Krishna also, Krishna, it's described that Lord Krishna is also covered by Yoga Maya, and he forgets that he's God. So you see in the exchanges with Krishna, especially with Srimati Radharani, that Krishna forgets he's God. He legitimately thinks that he's a little boy. He actually becomes frightened when Mother Jasoda chases him with a stick. He actually gets scared. He doesn't just pretend he's afraid. It's not like he's putting on a theatrical performance and he's a good actor. But he really feels that fear. And in the case of Srimati Radharani, even Krishna was unable to really understand the depth of her love for him. He was unable to fully fathom that experience, and he wanted to. So he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to experience that relationship, that loving relationship between Srimati Radharani and the Supreme Lord Krishna. So this Yoga Maya, in the Bhagavad Gita, in text 726, it says, Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samam vita mudhoyam abhijananti loko mam ajam avyayam. That Krishna covers the living entity so that the living entity cannot see him unless he wants them to see him. So that Yoga Maya potency can be effective in the form of Mahamaya if we have other desires, if we have other interests than serving the Supreme Lord Krishna, if we have other interests in trying to enjoy the material world separate from him, and if we can become Vyaivyasikat Buddhir, if we can be Ekeha, one-pointed in our intelligence, in our desire to serve Krishna, then Yoga Maya kicks in. And she helps us, she assists us, so that we can focus on the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with love. There's one verse from the prayers of Queen Kunti where Kunti talks about Maya Javani Kachchanam, that the living entity is covered, or Krishna is covered to the living entity by a curtain of Maya. Just like an actor can't be seen or can't be identified when he's doing a good job, when he's dressed as somebody else, people will look and they'll think, oh, who's that playing the Sringade? I can't see who it is, because that person has become, for all effective purposes, the person that they're playing. And so the curtain of the illusory energy is covering the ability to perceive them. And that's what happens to the living entity, either in the state that Srimati Radharani is in, or in the state that we're in. The state that we're in, that illusion causes us to forget Krishna. And in the state that Srimati Radharani is in, it causes us to forget everything else but Krishna. All the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they're covered by Yoga Maya. Occasionally, there's some little teeny flicker of realization that Krishna is God. And immediately Krishna takes it away. When Mother Jasoda, when Krishna was eating dirt, right? He was eating dirt. And all the cowherd boys went to Mother Jasoda and said, he's been eating dirt. And Krishna said, have not. And they said, have to. And we're going to tell your mother on you. So they went into Mother Jasoda and they said, Krishna's been eating dirt. And Krishna denied adamantly that he was doing that. So Mother Jasoda looked in his mouth. And when she looked in his mouth, she saw all the universes in his mouth. She saw planets and she saw everything in the material world and the spiritual world all contained in Krishna's mouth. Even she saw herself looking into Krishna's mouth, in Krishna's mouth. So when she saw that, she became unable to be Krishna's mother. She became unable to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that mood of mother. And so Krishna didn't like that. And Yogamaya immediately came into play because Yogamaya's job, her service, is to arrange so that Krishna's devotees can happily engage in his pastimes and that Krishna will be satisfied and pleased by those loving exchanges. But if that Aishwarya, that fear, that reverence gets in the way, then how can I be your mother? How can I chastise you for eating dirt? You rascal, why are you eating dirt? Here I am working so hard, feeding you, churning the butter, making the best butter from the best cows, and turning it into wonderful sweets, and going out of my way to give you everything, and then you eat dirt, or you go to the other houses and you steal. What kind of a reputation you're going to give our household? I mean, really. When you're going around and you're eating at other people's houses, people will think that I don't feed you. But how can I have that attitude towards Krishna when I'm seeing Krishna as God? It's not possible. And so therefore Yogamaya's service is to cover that over. And so that the devotees see Krishna as their worshipable Lord, as their lovable master. In that drama that we put on sometime of the Bilva Mangal Thakur, he says that the residents of Vrindavan, they do not know that Krishna is God. And of course it's coming from Prabhupada's Krishna book. They do not know that Krishna is God. They just think of Krishna as their most lovable friend. Their most lovable friend. When the cowherd boys, when Krishna ate the forest fire, they thought for a minute because they closed their eyes, and then Krishna ate the whole thing. And the reason Krishna had them close their eyes is because they told on him when he ate dirt. And he got him in trouble. So he thought, well, if I eat a fire, Mother Jasoda is going to completely lose it. And these boys are going to go tell on me, so I better have them close their eyes. So you guys close your eyes and I'll take care of it. And so they closed their eyes and Krishna ate the forest fire. But when they woke up or when they opened their eyes and they saw that all the danger was gone, they thought, maybe he's a demigod or something. He has some amazing powers. But still that Yogamaya, no, Krishna's just our friend. Let's go play. Let's go eat lunch. Let's share ladus. Let's take his lunch bag and throw it. Let's have fun together. So that's Yogamaya. But then there's another job that this potency of Krishna has, and that's to keep the riffraff out of the spiritual world. That if we're not qualified by being free from material desire and the desire for our own pleasure, then we're not qualified to interact with Krishna in this intimate realm, in this way that allows us to enter into these leelas in the spiritual world. We're not qualified. So then Krishna covers that, Yogamaya covers us over. And we think that I'm an American and I'm born in New York and I'm 66 years old and my knees hurt and, whatever. We start meditating on our relationship with Krishna in a different way. And if we're pious, it's described in Bhagavad Gita, if we're pious, our miserable material condition will bring us towards Krishna. We'll go to Krishna and say, could you please remove the pain in my knees? Could you please help me out because I have to pay bills, because I'm feeling sad, or whatever. And in that effort to go to Krishna, we'll be able to maybe begin our devotional sojourn, if we're fortunate enough, and we'll make spiritual advancement eventually, so that Yoga Maya deals with us in a different way. Prabhupada compares Yoga Maya, Mahamaya to civil law and criminal law. That, there's laws that keep the material society running smoothly. There's lights that turn red, and in some countries they stop at red lights, and some countries they don't, and then it becomes confusing. But if you stop at red lights, that law assists us. It may impinge your ability to get somewhere fast at one particular time of day or something, and you might think, oh, this is a pain. But in general, it keeps things running smoothly. It gives you protection. It keeps the traffic fairly safe. People drive in their own lane, and they stop when they're supposed to stop, and they go. It's pretty predictable what's going to happen on the road if people actually follow the laws. And we have other laws, too, that they're there for our protection. A person, Prabhupada points out, that a person who's law-abiding, when he sees a policeman or he hears about the laws, he doesn't become fearful, right? He doesn't become fearful because he knows that those laws are in place for his benefit. And that police officer, he's there for his protection. He sees that police officer, if you're walking down a dark street in New York at night near Central Park, and you're feeling a little bit nervous because you hear someone's footfalls behind you, and you turn around and you see it's a police officer, that gives you a sense of relief. You feel, whew, okay, it's not Jack the Ripper. I feel more safe because this person who's been assigned to protect me is there. So Yoga Maya is like that. She covers the living entities who are law-abiding, who have love for Krishna, and she allows them to fulfill the highest experience of that loving relationship. Just like Srimati Radharani here. From the external view, it looks like Srimati Radharani's cracked up, nuts. But really what's happening here is that she's so in love with Krishna that she can't think of anything else. She can't see anything else. Everything she comes in contact with reminds her of the Supreme Lord. So much so that this bumblebee has become a messenger, and all her thoughts, her private thoughts about Krishna's leaving and about his hurting her and the gopis by not, being there for them after they gave up everything for him. And we'll hear later on, she accuses him of being, behaving improperly in other leelas and Ram Leela. And all these different ideas that she has, they're all coming out in this conversation with the bumblebee. And then even she sees the bumblebee so much as Krishna's messenger that if he disappears from her vision for a few minutes, she thinks, oh my gosh, he's gone to Krishna and he's going to tell Krishna all the bad things I said, so I better not talk like that anymore. I better make up for it and make sure he understands that I was just kidding. I didn't really mean it. I do love Krishna, really, I do, and I want him to come back like anything. I don't want him to become angry with me. So this whole relationship, although it appears to be madness, is actually the highest level of consciousness, the highest level of awareness. We have a nice example in Chaitanya Leela with the two thieves, right, that came because they were looking for material wealth. They saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a young baby dressed very opulently. He was wearing jewels and ornaments, and they thought, this is my opportunity to get material opulence. Just like sometimes we look at God and we think, this is my opportunity to get rich, to get famous, to get prestige, to make other people jealous of me. When I park my new car in front of the church, or in front of the synagogue, or in front of the Hare Krishna temple, and everybody thinks, whose car is that? That's pretty awesome. And that gives me some kind of feeling. So they were thinking, this is just a little boy. He's an easy hit. Let me get his jewels, let me get his wealth. And so they capture him. And their mother, Sachi, and Jagannath Misra, total anxiety. Where is Nimai? He's been taken, he's gone. Where is he? And they're looking all over, and they're praying for him to come back. And the thieves are thinking, let's go far away. And they're going as far as they can, but somehow or other they wind up back where they started. And Sachi is so grateful to them. Oh, look, you brought Nimai back. Thank you. And they're thinking, oh my God, what if we get caught? We better get out of here quick. So they split, and they're grateful that they got to escape. And Sachi is so grateful that her son has returned. So you have these two people, both covered by some kind of illusion, but one is absorbed in loving relationship, and the other is absorbed in material thought. How can I become rich? How can I take these things that are actually God's and use them for my pleasure? So if we become overcome by the material energy, we start to think like that. And we look around the material world and we think, all these things, they're there for my pleasure. I should just take them. And Krishna helps us out by covering us over. He covers us over, and he allows us to explore the material world and try to get happiness from the material world. And again and again and again and again, we get kicked, we get beaten, we get clobbered, we get sad. We get, everything comes and goes and leaves us 1 minute happy, 1 minute sad. Because the nature of the material energy is that it binds us and it keeps us in an unhappy state. Just like we have the civil law, which frees us from unnecessary suffering, we have criminal law, which is also there for the safety of the good people. Right? That's why the bad people get in trouble, and the bad people don't even get into the spiritual world because the criminal law keeps them out. It keeps them back, if it's functional. Sometimes it's not so functional. But in its ideal sense, the criminal law keeps the bad people in jail. It keeps them in check. And so the bad people, they look at that criminal law, and hopefully they get a sense of fear. But if they don't and they engage in bad activities, then they get locked up. That criminal law, that same lawmaker arranges laws that keep them bound so that they don't bother the good people, so that they don't get in the way of the good people. And they can play their game. They can pretend that they're enjoying, and every once in a while, regularly, they get suffering. It's part of the deal. You can't have the positive without the negative. That's just the nature of the material world. And if you want the positive without the negative, it isn't going to happen, because the material world is certified to Kalayam Shashvatam. It's temporary and it's full of misery, and that's just the way it is. So until we realize that and we go to Krishna with a desire to please him, we are subject to these material laws of nature, which will bring us suffering, which will take us away from Krishna. And if we change that desire, if we serve Krishna by devotional service, then we can overcome the material energy. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the material energy is very difficult to overcome. But by devotional service, by getting his help, then we can overcome it. Then it's possible to overcome it. And then Krishna gives us different experience with Maya. Instead of the yoga Maya, which covers us over and keeps us from seeing Krishna, we have the yoga Maya, which brings us closer to Krishna, which covers Krishna's godness and allows us to reciprocate with him in loving relationship. I wanted to read a purport, or it's actually a lecture from Srila Prabhupada. It's on one of the prayers of Queen Kunti when she's talking about the beauty of Krishna. Her prayer is, my dear Krishna, Jasoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears which washed the mascara from your eyes. And you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. So because Queen Kunti wasn't quite on the level of Srimati Radharani, she realized that she was bewildered. She realized that Mother Jasoda's ability to be completely devoid of awareness that Krishna was God was bewildering to Queen Kunti, because Queen Kunti knew she had a kind of mixed understanding. She was Krishna's aunt, but at the same time she knew about Krishna's godness. So she had a mixture. Devaki also had a mixture of some awe and reverence mixed with unalloyed devotion that allowed her to sometimes relate to Krishna as her aunt, and other times to see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he was. So here's Prabhupada speaking on this verse, and I thought it was very beautiful what Prabhupada said. We should not love Krishna for some material gain. It is not that we should say, Krishna, give us our daily bread, and then I shall love you. Krishna, give me this or that, and then I shall love you. There should be no such mercantile exchanges, for Krishna wants unalloyed love. And then he talks a little bit of the scene of Mother Jasoda binding Krishna. And then he says, this scene is very much appreciated by pure devotees, for it shows how much greatness there is in the Supreme Person who plays exactly like a perfect child. When Krishna plays like a child, he plays perfectly. And when he plays as a husband of 16,000 wives, he plays perfectly. And when he plays as the lover of the gopis, he plays perfectly. And as the friend of the cowherd boys, he also plays perfectly. And then he says, thus the inhabitants of Vrindavan do not care who is God and who is not. They love Krishna, that's all. Those who think of first analyzing Krishna to determine whether he is God are not first-class devotees. The first-class devotees are those who have spontaneous love for Krishna. How can we analyze Krishna? He is unlimited, and therefore it is impossible. It's not possible for us to understand how simultaneously Krishna can be in Vrindavan at every moment and be not in Vrindavan at any moment. How Radharani can lament Krishna's absence and at the same time Krishna is right in front of her. It's not possible for us to understand. The first-class devotees are those who have spontaneous love for Krishna. He is unlimited, and therefore it is impossible to analyze him. We have limited perception, and our senses have limited potency. So how can we study Krishna? It is not possible at all. Krishna reveals himself to a certain extent, and that much is sufficient. Therefore, the mentality of Vrindavan is the perfect status of mind for devotees. The inhabitants of Vrindavan have no concern with understanding Krishna. Rather, they want to love Krishna unconditionally. It is not that they think Krishna is God, and therefore I love him. In Vrindavan, Krishna does not play as God. He plays as an ordinary cowherd boy. And although at times he proves that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotees there do not care to know it. So this understanding is the highest understanding, and it's exhibited in its pinnacle here in this discussion between Srimati Radharani and this bumblebee, as she's overcome by love of Krishna and sees everything in relation to him. And even later we'll see she says, I don't want to think about Krishna, but it's impossible for me to stop talking about him. Even though she tells the bee, you should stop serving him. He's not a very worthy master. But for me, it's impossible for me to stop talking about him. So we should aspire not so much for intellectually understanding the pastimes of Krishna, because they defy our material ability to analyze them. But rather we should try to develop love for Krishna and see how, by his mercy, he's assisting us in every effort we make to go back to the Supreme Lord, to develop a loving relationship with him. He's helping us. He's helping us by taking things away from us. He's helping us by giving us sometimes happiness, sometimes distress. He's helping us by giving us the association of devotees. He's giving us the power of his holy name. Lord Chaitanya says, I'm so unfortunate, I have no attraction, but you're so kind, you've put all your potency in the holy name. So I need to develop attachment to the holy name. I need to develop attachment to the service of the devotees and to the mercy of the deities that Krishna has appeared in this form to accept our service, to attract our eyes, to attract our senses. Once I was at an initiation ceremony in Detroit, I believe it was in 1975, and Prabhupada was there, but someone else was asked to give the class at the initiation. So the person who was giving the class, he said that in Krishna consciousness, the system is that we have different things to engage all our senses. We have incense to engage our sense of smell, and we have beautiful pictures and deities to engage our sense of sight. We should use our fingers, engages the sense of touch to, and then Prabhupada cut him off in the middle of a sentence. And Prabhupada said, just somehow or other, fix your mind and remember Krishna. Somehow or other. So Krishna's given us so many ways. We can even see Krishna in the bumblebee. We can see Krishna everywhere. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us so many ways to see him. In the Bhagavatam, in so many different ways, we see different ways to see him. In our lives, Krishna lets us see him by experiences we have that appear miraculous, and they remind us of Krishna. And to the degree that we desire to serve Krishna, he will give us the ability to understand him. So I'll stop there. And if there's any questions, then perhaps we can have some discussion. Yes, Prabhu. Hare Parayana. Hare Krishna.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to phrase this question correctly or well enough. So Krishna's energy, Yogamaya, covers the perception of everybody, including Radharani,
exactly.
Brajavasis. And I came across this concept, I thought to myself that must be unsatisfying, because you have to somehow put people in illusion so that they are able to actually express their love towards you. Otherwise, if they know who you are, they can't really express their love. They are afraid of you. So this doubt has been in my mind for some time. And then, so I wondered, okay, then when Krishna expands into Vishnu's, all the different expansions, they know they are Krishna, they are Vishnu Tattva. They could exchange love without requiring Yogamaya, perhaps. And then I came across this pastime of Advaitacharya in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Advaitacharya...
He wanted to get beat up.
Yeah, and then he does beat him. And it doesn't seem like there's Yogamaya there, because they're both aware of each other's position, and there is exchange of love. So that made sense to me. The other thing, especially Radharani's love for Krishna, doesn't make sense to me, because she is Krishna. But even she has to be, and she is the closest, she is Krishna himself. And she controls Krishna, and yet Yogamaya is required. So I don't know.
Okay, well, first I have to say that this is one of the reasons why it's good to be a woman. Because men are too analytical, and it gets you in trouble. We can just sit in the back seat and enjoy Krishna book, and you have to sit there and try and figure out why Krishna book says what it says and not something else. That's your problem. But going a little bit beyond that, just for the sake of discussion, just consider that a person is a high court judge, and he also has children. He has a family. So his children, they kind of know that he's a high court judge. They see him go to work every day. Maybe even when they get older, they understand what kind of work he's doing. but especially when they're young, they don't really relate to the fact that he's a high court judge. To him, he's their father. And that loving relationship that he has with them as the father would inspire him to give up his life for their welfare. Right? If the boy was hurt or in danger, that man, who's the high court judge, he would give up his life for that child. On the other hand, he's the high court judge. So he goes into the courtroom, everybody stands up, everybody stands until he sits down, and then he sits down, he hits the gavel onto the thing, and everybody is quiet, and there are people who were actually covetous of his position. They think that, wow, he's got a high position, and I respect him, but at the same time, maybe I want to be where he is. I wish I could be like him. But the child, he's not interested in that at all. That's just not his mood, and that part just gets in the way, right? And so if someone in the courtroom, someone who's a lawyer or someone who knows this person as a judge, wants to develop a personal relationship with this person outside of the courtroom, he has to overcome the fear and the entrapment of all the awe and reverence in order to actually develop a close friendship. It takes time and energy. So Yogamaya, although she is part of Krishna, she is coming from Krishna, her job, her service, is to facilitate Krishna's Leela. So we don't have the time to overcome this reverence and develop another relationship. The Leela has to happen now. Krishna wants to have this exchange with his mother now. He wants to suck his mother's breast. He wants to eat dirt and have her chastise him. He wants to have these exchanges. So Mother Yogamaya, in service to Krishna, speeds up the process by covering over the devotee, so that that devotee is not confused or not interfered. That loving relationship is not interfered with by awe and reverence. So it's actually Yogamaya's service to Krishna to prevent the living entity from having to deal with that awe and reverence, which gets in the way inadvertently. Even Daruka used to pray, used to curse his tears because he was trying to serve Krishna, but he couldn't. His tears were getting in the way. He couldn't serve him properly. So Yogamaya facilitates Krishna's enjoyment by acting in that way of covering over. So it's not really Krishna that puts us in illusion, but Yogamaya does. But on the ultimate issue, the living entities who love Krishna or who are attracted to Krishna in the way that Srimati Radharani is attracted to Krishna, or in the way that Krishna, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was attracted to Krishna, they are somewhat, occasionally, aware that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if that thought gets in the way of their Leela, then Yogamaya helps them out and removes that thought immediately, because it gets in the way of their service. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't know if your question can be answered, because the fact that you don't understand is perfectly fine. I mean, what to do? You don't understand. And 99.9% of the people on the planet don't understand. So Hare Krishna, very, very samaham durlabha that understands even a little bit. And out of those Manushanam Sahasri, so only one achieves perfection. So your lack of understanding is perfectly in line with the teachings. Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. And I'll sit in the back and read Krishna book. Yes, Janmashtami.
Very nice class. The question I have, it seems like there's a Hare Krishna.
It's covered by Yogamaya. Yeah, go ahead.
Like in the text 2 of Nectar of Instruction, there's a description of Antaranga Shakti being the internal energy of the Lord, and the Bahiranga Shakti So it seems that, like say for a sadhaka, that if he's strictly following, he's also under the internal energy of the Lord, but it doesn't have the same kind of influence.
It's not like Radharani.
Yeah, right. Well, it facilitates the service, but it doesn't have, but there's still this, awe and reverence that's
And there's
essential.
sometimes illusion also.
Yeah, I mean, there's an essential role that it plays in every stage of a devotee's development, it seems.
Yeah, but yes, that's true. And in addition to that, we have to understand that until one reaches prem, or at least ruchi, one's loving relationship with, or maybe, I don't know where it starts, but somewhere after Anartana Vritti, the living entity's level of pure devotional service is flickering. 1 minute he can be in prema bhakti, or he can feel like he's got pure devotion. Prabhupada talks about that. You can be a pure devotee 1 minute and in Maya the next, in one sense of pure devotee. That's why Prabhupada told us we were all pure devotees while we were sitting in front of him listening to Bhagavatam class. And as soon as the class ended, we walked outside, then our pure devotiness kind of dissipates, So the loving relationship with the Supreme Lord of devotees changes as they go through their lives and as they make spiritual advancement. And so sometimes Maya looks one way, Yoga Maya, and sometimes Yoga Maya looks the other way. Sometimes Krishna does different things to inspire us in spiritual life. And if we're pure devotees, like for instance, when the Pandavas, or so many devotees, not only the Pandavas, but so many devotees, they suffer. They undergo what appears to be suffering. But that suffering, how it appears to them, is different according to their spiritual realization. But that suffering is given to them by Krishna to inspire them to remember him. So, who was it that asked Krishna? I think it was the demigods said to Krishna, why you take, where you're devotees, you take everything away. And Krishna responded with, when I really want to facilitate a devotee, then I take everything away. Yasyaham and Grami. That I take everything away. But a non-devotee or a flickering devotee will love Krishna when Krishna gives and not love Krishna so much when he takes away. Or he may love him when he takes some things away, but if he takes other things away, he goes over, crosses a line, and then the devotee's faith wavers. Because you're taking too much away. Wait a minute, not that. I need that. I want that. So because our faith is unsteady, or because our love is unsteady, we may see Krishna's hand in our life in different ways. And it's not that Krishna's hand is different, but our vision of Krishna's hand is different. And so the more advanced that we become, the more steady our realization is that whatever happens to us is Krishna's hand in our lives and should be accepted as Krishna's mercy. And as we become, truly devoted, truly aware of Krishna's kindness on our lives, then we allow ourselves more and more to just fall into his hands. Like the boys, the cowherd boys, they were able to just fall into Krishna's hands. There was no danger that could come in front of them that they would look for any other solution other than to take shelter of Krishna. They knew Krishna would take care of them no matter what. So when devotees come to that stage, then Yoga Maya can work in their lives consistently. But we sometimes not fixed in that, where we flicker. And so our vision of what Krishna is doing for us becomes clouded. Not so much that what Krishna is doing for us becomes arbitrary, but what our vision of that becomes clouded. Is that helpful?
This seems that the role that Yoga Maya plays.
Well, how she does her service changes. Yeah.
It's tailored the
Definitely.
individual position of the devotee, his consciousness, his level of surrender.
Definitely.
But it's still, Yogamaya is still there for us guys, you know, that are just
Right.
getting out of prison.
And we should remember that Krishna, the medicine that Krishna is assigning to us, or Yogamaya is giving us, the medicine she's giving us, is the medicine we need. And even if it's bitter, even if we don't like taking it, even if it's, a drag, still it's the medicine we need. And we should be grateful for that medicine. That's the vision of a devotee. Even if you handle me roughly by your not appearing before me or leave me brokenhearted, that's what Chaitanya prays. Still, you're my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Anybody else? Oh, Hare Krishna.
You said sometimes the devotees know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God, and sometimes they don't. In their lamentation, they were saying, they were criticizing Krishna that, he killed Bali by standing behind the tree.
That's later.
And, different things like that. So at that point, we did realize that Krishna was supreme, or like when he said supernatural came to you and you cut off. Who did they think Krishna was, and when he took this previous word?
Well, I can't answer that question. Who did they think Krishna was? They thought he was a debauchee. They thought he was acting improperly as a kshatriya. They thought he was doing bad things. But they didn't really think that way. They just said that to... Radharani was trying to give the bee evidence so that she would defect as a servant of Krishna. That's what that verse is about. She was trying to convince the bee that you're serving this master, but this master is an unreliable master, and I'll prove it. I'll tell you what he did that you bet you didn't even know, that he killed Bali from behind a tree, and he cut off Sarpadika's nose, and he did all these things. So look at the guy that you're serving. Look what he's like. Do you still want to serve him? That was her argument. And so she wasn't seeing Krishna doing those things as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She was seeing those things as indications that this bee should give up Krishna's service. And then in 2 verses beyond that, she says, I didn't mean any of it. Krishna's a really good guy, and I hope he comes back, and all I really, really want to do is serve him. So we this is what Prabhupada is saying here, that we can't hyperanalyze these verses and try to understand them with the way we look at the material world, and what did he mean, and what did he say, and was it, because if we try to do that, then we lose the essence of what is really going on here. And that loving relationship becomes clouded by jnana, or by the desire to make it applicable in this world where it's impossible to make it applicable in this world. This world has so many limitations, not the least of which is there's no time, and everything in this material world is temporary, everything in the spiritual world is permanent, everything in the material world is impersonal, everything in the spiritual world is personal. There's significant differences, and we can't try to analyze the spiritual world through material eyes. Doesn't work. And I think I should stop. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.